covering the community, events, and people of Georgia, Carolina. This is the Means Report. Here is Brad Means.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Means Report. We appreciate you joining us on this Sunday. Hope you had a wonderful Super Bowl. Hope you had a wonderful Valentine's Day. Hope life has been good to you since the last time we met. We're excited to have Mayor Deke Copenhaver back on the Means Report. You know, he is on each month just to give us an update on what's going on in the city of Augusta. And for the past couple of visits, we've noticed that there has been a ton of news and a ton of stuff about which to update us, if you will. And so hopefully we can spend a little bit more time with the mayor today, letting you know everything that has been going on in the Garden City. And as I said, it has been pretty much nonstop. So let's get right to it. Mayor Copenhaver, thank you as always for the time.
Brad, glad to be here.
I guess we'll start with the most recent news, and that's the news that's coming down about the T-Center and the parking deck across the street from it. Is that over? Is everything worked out? And your thoughts on the really what amounted to a last-minute deal that kind of came together?
Brad, it has been worked out. We've got the agreement in place, but you know, I would say that a lot of the controversy surrounding this project was really unnecessary. I'm glad that we finally reached a resolution, but really, to my mind, you know, it's almost like no decision is ever final. We make a decision and go back and argue over the decision. And these are complex real estate transactions, so I'm glad it's done. I'm glad we can move forward.
So the city is going to get some revenue from that, and the Marriott's going to get some revenue. And I guess the question is this, how does this reflect on our administrator, Fred Russell? Because he's sort of the one who was behind this whole thing. Does the commission have any confidence in this man anymore?
You know, I think so, Brad. And really, once again, I come from a background in real estate and development. Some deals are clean. Sometimes you have things come up along the way. You know, unfortunately, particularly when you're dealing with downtown property, you have some issues come up. But I think that the commission, all in all, has faith in Fred Russell. He was not trying to put one over on anybody, nor was anybody else. There was no boogeyman in this situation. They had legitimate questions. At the end of the day, the land beneath the parking deck will be transferred to the Land Bank Authority. So everybody, I think, is happy with it, or most people are, but it's time to move forward.
I mean, I agree with you. I agree that Fred Russell did the best he could, but why are commissioners so mean to him all the time?
That's a good question. You'll have to ask them individually, but I'll share with you, Brad, and it's no secret, I wrote an op-ed piece here recently saying that really we should, if we're going to ask our employees to behave in a professional manner and a respectful manner, that we should be willing to do the same things ourselves as elected officials. So the tenor had gotten a little caustic with regards to dealing with the administrator and department heads, but my hope is we can move forward and really focus on that professionalism as an elected body. We brought on a new fire chief this week. Great guy, very professional, very well trained, and somebody that really conducts themselves with dignity. That's what I'd like to see from our elected officials as well.
I do want to cover the code of conduct and the upcoming retreat that'll discuss it. I want to talk a little bit more about the parking deck situation, probably one more question, and that's your level of confidence in the city's legal team. Let's say Administrator Russell did the best he could. What about those lawyers behind the scenes?
I have all the faith in the world, Brad, and you consider this. What would be the incentive with the media scrutiny that we get for an attorney to put their job on the line to do something untoward? You know, there are people that put misinformation out there all the time, and they make these allegations and they never back it up. You know, people say, well, there's corruption. We've got a DA. If you've got legitimate evidence, take it to the DA. I'd like to know about that. But yes, I have all the faith in the world in our legal team.
So here we go. As of this taping of the Means Report, the retreat for the commission is before us. It's about to happen later this week. And in the spotlight is going to be this code of conduct, a code that some commissioners don't seem to want to talk about. What are your hopes going into this thing?
Brad, I'll just say this. It's pretty simple. I don't think it's too much to ask our elected officials to treat each other as well as our employees with dignity and respect. And that's what it's really about. But that, once again, to handle ourselves in a professional manner, that's not too much to ask, and that is what the vast majority of the public of this city want to see.
I'll tell you what, though, you have people like Alvin Mason, and I don't want to speak for others, but I've heard him on TV. He feels like he is just out of the loop, and that these mostly white commissioners, the gang of six, if you will, are making decisions behind closed doors and then voting on them at meetings, and he feels like everything's just behind his back and last minute. What do you say to that?
You know, Brad, it's unfortunate that he would feel this way. I know that commissioners have reached out to each other. Sometimes phone calls go unreturned, but it's not as though, once again, everything we do plays itself out in the spotlight. You know, there are, to my mind, no smoky back rooms, or at least I've never been in one. Maybe that existed 20 years ago, but you know, I'm down there every day with local reporters walking into my office. I have an open door policy with cameras. It's not like there are these smoky back rooms, but I'd just say it's unfortunate that people feel that way. And it's like, I'll give you a great example, that with the giving the property to the land bank, that came up that morning. It was actually Jerry Brigham's idea, so it satisfied something that the commission had wanted to see. And to me, just because it came up at the last minute, there wasn't anything untoward there. And if it's a good idea that solves a problem, why not be for that? And that's, to me, we need to get back to problem solving, not problem creating.
What do you hope? Do you hope they sign something or just kind of make a pledge this coming weekend?
Well, it's already in place. I hope that at the very least that we can agree upon that. I will tell you this, I would like to see this become a campaign issue. We've got 5 commission seats up this year, and I would like to ask the public to ask candidates to sign off on a pledge that I will conduct myself by the code of conduct. I don't think, because I've heard it overwhelmingly from the public, from the man on the street, cards, letters, you know, emails, phone calls. We want to see them work together for the betterment of the city as a whole.
What else do you hope comes out of this retreat? Might we make progress on the budget? That seems to be an issue that's lingering.
And I'll share this with you, Brad. That's the thing to me. When you look at the time and effort and energy that was put into arguing over the parking management agreement, when we've got a $6 million budget deficit that nobody's talking about, you know, at the end of the day, it goes back to problem solving. We don't have to agree on everything. We can, you know, disagree without being disagreeable. But we've got to return our focus to the major issues facing the city, the budget being one of them.
Are we dipping into the reserves yet because we haven't approved this thing?
Well, I did vote to break a tie to go to the reserves to cover some of the expenses so that we didn't gut our engineering department earlier this year. But the faster we get to this, the better. But I would share again, you know, this is not something that other cities aren't facing. We've just come through the worst recession in my lifetime. I say come through, the economic data looks good over the past several weeks, but you know, it's not unusual, but we've got to really raise our game to address those big picture issues. All that infighting takes time, you know, out of my day, the administrator's day, and time and energy on behalf of the commission that I believe should be focused towards those big picture issues.
One of the issues in the budget, many of the issues involved cutbacks, obviously. We have to offset that deficit, and we were talking about dozens of 30-plus job losses. Those people have since been in limbo. Is there any hope because this is taking so long that their jobs might be saved, or do you still see that as imminent?
Nothing is set in stone at this point, but Brad, I've said, you know, my personal opinion. In our last retreat, the commission said, well, we want a budget with no tax increase and no furloughs. You know, I would say that furloughs should be something that we talk about because the employees that I've spoken to would rather have a job and be furloughed as opposed to not having a job at all. But I don't think you can just take everything off the table and say, well, no tax increase, no furloughs. But then when we find out that we're going to have to, in order to pass that budget or bring it forward, you're going to have to send people home. You know, ultimately, you can't cover everything by going to the reserves. That's bad fiscal policy. It's got to be a balanced approach.
What do you hear from the community that might convince our viewers that the city has not gone back to the white versus black days, and that it really might just be a case of more level-headed commissioners versus angry commissioners right now?
Well, I'll share with you, Brad, and it's, you know, I think in any situation, it's more power and control than it is black versus white. Ideologically, you've got some commissioners that are at two extremes, you know, and that's So that leads to a lot of the friction. But to my mind, it's ironic because I spend time throughout the community, you know, in all parts of the community weekly. The community itself has progressed so far past the politics. Ultimately, I hope that the politics will catch up with the community. But what I hear from people is, I heard from a lady at the Y after I wrote that op-ed piece, she said, they act like we're still in the 60s. And you can't, we're in the 21st century. We need to be willing to adjust as a city. And at the grassroots level, we have. You know, you go to major employers and you've got diverse groups working together and they're not really paying attention to the politics. I go to the Y every morning and that's a huge diverse group of people that age-wise, race-wise, ethnicities, and I don't sense any tension there. You know, you've got great people that have become friends through the years. So just that politics of power and control and one-upsmanship, that needs to go.
I know you indicated in your piece that we may never know the answer to this, but in your heart, do you think that we've lost business because of the fighting at the commission level?
I do, absolutely. Because when you consider, once again, all things being equal and economic development is tremendously competitive now, you know, if another city has a more stable governmental situation, that's a plus for them and a minus for us. And that's what I continue to say. We do not operate in a vacuum. We live in the information age to where everything we do as a governing body is all over the web to be, our dirty laundry can be accessed by anybody in the world with internet access. So we've got to think that way and realize, you know, we do not live in a vacuum. Our actions have consequences.
They do, and people know about them. And here we are on the eve of the Masters again, when the world is going to be watching us. And you'd like a positive vibe to be being sent out there to the world.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you about Chris James, our new fire chief. He's a good man, you're right, and I'm glad he got the job. Do you have high hopes for the fire department and some of the problems that it's experienced being smoothed over in the future?
I do, and Chris is a very good man. You know, I had the opportunity to swear him in yesterday, but one of the things I said is that the true note of somebody who's a servant leader is a spirit of humility. He exemplifies that, and I believe that he's going to lead the department to greater heights. But here again, I said, and I told him, I'm not here to micromanage you. I'm here to work with you when you need me. I don't believe it's the job of an elected official to run the day-to-day operations. You're a professional. I'm here to help you. And also, he's somebody that I know will conduct themselves in the most high-minded, professional manner. And I shared with him and with those gathered, you know, his behavior, I believe, should be a role model for the behavior of our elected officials. He's that good of a guy.
He is. To meet him is to know that he's just a quality individual, and I congratulate Chief James and his family. When we come back, I'm going to ask Mayor Copenhaver a series of questions that you submitted. And Mayor, I'll say this. People sometimes get on to journalists for paraphrasing and for trying to put questions with a more positive light on them. I'm going to read these things as they are, and you just respond or don't respond, and we'll get through as many as we can. It'll be probably an idea of what the mayor has to go through on a day-to-day basis, and some of the voicemails you probably have to deal with, and some of the visits in your open door office that you have to deal with. But is that okay? We'll fire these at you, and you do your best.
I'm good with it.
All right. Questions from you for Mayor Deke Copenhaver when the Means Report continues.